James Rebshack, Football in Focus. Got our Andrews assistant coach in the house. Good to see you, Coach.
Good to see you.
Give us your name because we haven't met you before.
My name is Jamelle Miller.
Jamelle Miller. That name does sound familiar though for some reason. Did you play there before?
I didn't play at Andrews. I played at Page in I played here in Greensboro at Page.
Yeah, I thought that name sounded familiar. What position you play back in the day?
I played offensive line.
Still a pretty big man, but not a huge man.
No, I wasn't big there. I mean, the offensive line that I was on then, I was, compared to the guys we got on our line now, I was small. I was a midget in comparison. But
boy, if you saw that, you got a nice line here tonight with us here at Shane's. We've seen this one kid at Dudley, Isaiah Little. Those are the guys we promoted heavily this year. He's 6'6", weighs 348.
Wow.
And you got the guys over Page. You got the center, I think that kid, Nick Makovic, I think he's like 6'3", 300. You got Will Harden. You met a Coach Harden before over Page, probably. Coach Harden's son, I think he's about 6'3", 280. So they've got some size there now. I think that's been one of their assets this year at Page, is that big offensive line, what I've heard.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and I kind of, while I coach at Andrews, I do kind of keep up with Page because I know
another guy keeps up too. That's going to be Coach Randy Norris. He's all in that Page stuff, isn't he, Coach Norris? He's a good man.
Yeah, he's a very good man. But I keep up with Page. That's my alma mater, and there's, while I love High Point Andrews, but I do keep up with Page.
Who was coaching? I know Coach Kirby probably coaching.
Oh, he was Coach Kirby.
Yeah. Who was your offensive line coach? Coach Starling?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he did a good job, didn't he?
Yes, he did a very good job, and that's I've always appreciated Coach Kirby and Coach Starling for all they did for us. Coach Page, rest in peace.
Cam Page, yes, sir.
And Coach Vi, and all the coaching staff that was there at the time, they were great. And I always appreciate my time that I had at Page.
Too, right?
Coach Nance, yes.
He's a good force.
Yes, he was. I like Coach Nance. I still every once in a while I see Coach Nance, and it always reminds you that he was the one that always made you laugh. Between him and Coach Page, they always made you laugh. They for a lot of the kids that were there, it was like those are the ones that you kind of because while Coach Kirby was never like the really hard guy, but Coach Starling, while we were there, it was just like, man, oh my gosh, he's always on us. But he was like the hard driving one that kind of that iron that kind of forged you. But it was always Coach Nance and Coach Page that kind of, like, whenever things were kind of, you felt kind of bad or you were like, man, Coach was really riding you, they would always kind of joke with you, and it's like, man, this, wait it out, it's going to get better. I know Coach Page would tell us about Coach Starling. He would always say, if he's not riding you about something, then you're not playing good. He won't say anything to you, but if he's riding you, that means he knows you can be better.
He's stirring that fire up, and he's stirring that fire up. And almost sometimes these football teams, a coach like Coach Starling, I mean, Coach Kirby was a coach, but you get your position coach and you work with him every day, day in, day out for the entire year or for several years, he becomes almost more like your coach and your head coach is. You know him. Sometimes it may be the case you don't know your head coach all that well, but you do know that position coach real well.
Yeah, but like I said, with Coach Starling, he was that hard driving one, but Coach Kirby, he was always the encouraging one. And I even whenever I talk to Coach McCoy now, and I will tell him, really, there's a lot of similarities between them to me, because he said he's never met Coach Kirby. He's heard a lot about him, and I tell him that really, for me to play for Coach Kirby and to be under Coach McCoy, there's a lot of similarities. They're both they expect and they look for excellence out of the kids, and they push them for excellence. And for me, that's what I like to say I succeeded because the coaches that I had then, and the reason why I wanted to coach was because I had Coach Kirby and Coach Starling there, and the coaches I named, those are the reasons why I succeeded, and those are the reasons why I wanted to coach. And
now, what kind of coach are you out in the field there coaching these guys? Kind of describe yourself, your coaching approach.
I kind of take something from each of the ones that I learned from. I know when I first started, I was probably like really, really hard because that's kind of what I got from Coach Starling. And then I kind of mellowed a little bit because I knew that today's players aren't. You can't coach them like I was coached. But the thing about it, I try to be very fair. I want to be the type of coach that they can rely on to say, that they can rely on my knowledge, but also know that, okay, if things are going wrong, who can I go back to and who can I talk to about what do I do on this play? What should I do on this play? Or how can I play? Because when I've gone from different positions, and that's another thing that kind of changed because I've coached running backs.
That's interesting.
I've coached wide receivers.
Wow, wide receiver, you're an offensive lineman coaching wide receivers. You have to know the game pretty well there.
Well, I mean, the thing about it, you have to kind of be a hybrid sometimes because you know your positions and
sometimes those guys overlap each other. You can be an offensive line coach. Some of those receivers, like the tight ends, even some of the receivers, they're blocking for the team too.
True. Well, that's what I mean. Like whenever I coach running backs, I always told them that they had to block for each other. You can't rely on somebody else to block for you. Even though we always had pretty decent offensive lines.
And if you got a running back maybe like a fullback or whatever the formation is, one of those backs back, he's almost like an extra offensive lineman. I'd love to be the running back who blocks because the best thing about it is an offensive lineman. I'm blocking. I used to hate these stances. Ask the players that come in. So what stance you get? I get the four. I hate the four. I hate the three. I want to stand up. If I'm a running back blocking, I got to run and start. I get to hit a guy full steam ahead. I never had to get down the stance. I just fly right at him, which is good.
Well, see, whenever I first started coaching at Andrews, I coached the first group of running backs I had. All those guys right now in college. It started with Xavier Quick, and now, and then after him was Marquell Cartwright, and then Ronte was also one of my running backs, and those guys. If people watched them, they saw that Ronte and Marquell, they blocked just as good as any other running back I've ever coached.
That makes a difference, too. A guy like T.J. Logan goes to Carolina Northern Guilford. If you're around all the time and have your blocking experience, it makes a difference when you get there.
Yeah, I mean, and especially for even with like the guys we have now, they came in behind Marquell and behind Ronte, and they've learned that you have to block for your other running backs, and that's what we always, whenever I was a running back coach, I preached to them, block for the guys in front of you, block for the guys that are running with you, because if they don't.
One thing, if I'm a running back and I have the ball, and if that guy's blocking me, then I'm gonna block for him well, and I get the ball later too.
Well, I mean, and that's how we're like even now. That's how we're successful because of this offensive line we do have, but we also have running backs that block for other running backs.
That's what's good too. Sometimes about teams. So we talked about being positions before. Sometimes back in the day, you're an offensive lineman. You go way down here in the corner in the woods, and you're practicing there. Running backs over here. You almost never even know your running backs. It's good sometimes you can find a way to kind of let the offensive line and the running backs get to know each other, working together, and let's talk to each other. Let's mix them up a little bit sometimes together.
Yeah.
There's a way to do that.
Well, I mean, like with our offensive line that we have here now, I mean, these guys that we like with some of the guys that we were talking on the way over here from High Point, and they were like, well, and I kind of looked in the car. I'm like, I've known these guys since they were freshmen, when they were the baby line, when they were behind the guys that won the state title, and I'm like, and I told them, I said, y'all went from just being backups on that team, and now you're starting, and they were in. Deontay was telling me, he said, I didn't realize people kind of talked about us like that, because I was telling them how other guys look at them now, or other teams look at them like, yeah, your line is pretty big.
Yes,
and I'm like, yeah, I mean, really, they do look at you like that, because there isn't many two-way football clubs that have the size line we have, and they're definitely not blocking like we block right now.
Well, beating teams like you've been beating guys, when you beat a team like High Point Central, put about 40 points in them, only getting about a touchdown. Did the same thing like 48-3 against Reedsville. You're putting up some big numbers, and you're churning it. How in the world did you guys lose to Southwest? What caused that loss the first game of the year? Any idea?
I believe it was because, I don't want to say it's because we didn't play the first week, but we hadn't had the experience of being out on the field. And then I believe even as a coach itself, I believe we may have overthought some things about how we thought they were going to play. And they were a lot better than we thought they were on film.
Is that one of those games you'd love to have that one back, do that one again? Play them over?
I hate to look back. I hate to ever say that, to look back and say, oh, what we could have done, because you can't do it. But that's one of the games probably, if I ever had a say in my life, that I would love to go back and get it. That one in the High Point Central game, the year we won the championship, I would love to have those games back, because you just look and say, hindsight is 20/20. If we had done this, we would have played a lot better. We would have done some different things.
If you could take it maybe and say travel expenses got tight one year. This is the High Point this year, Andrews, Southwest, Central. You're gonna play each other all year long. Just you got to go outside. You can play each other, those three, all year long, and you guys will probably enjoy that kind of a schedule. What you guys like to get together?
This year, I know we will probably enjoy it, because I think we have a team that can actually we can beat some. I believe we're one of those teams that can. I believe we can play with a lot of teams, whether they're 4A or whether they're 3A, 2A, or 1A. We can play with a lot of teams this year. I believe right now we got a team that I know we can win it.
I saw in the 4 games you've won, you guys put up something like 160 points to 25 for the opposition. That's really putting the number in there.
We have a very and I hate to look back at our championship year, but I believe, like right now, we have a offense that's really, really clicking, and we have a very good defense. Because I think a lot of people, when they look back at their championship team, they don't realize that our defense was really, really good that year. And leading into that year, even the years before, we've had really extraordinary defenses, and that year, we had a really, really good defense, and I think this year we have a very good defense. I'm a defensive line coach, and so I'm on the defensive side of the ball after being on the offensive side of the ball for so long. But I see what Coach Berry and Coach Moore and our defense coaching staff put into making this defense as good as it is, and they're really good. And
how about when Tony Washington was there? Did you ever coach Tony?
No, I was at Smith at the time whenever Tony was there.
So you were at Smith a little while. Who were you working with over at Smith?
I was with Coach Oakley that year, okay. And I ended up with Coach Brewington before I came over to High Point.
So you had a year with Coach Brewington?
Yeah.
Did you get to stick around for the second year or just the first year?
I coached the kids from the first year with the team that went 12 and what was it?
So you were part of that team?
I wasn't part of that team.
I wasn't those kids. You were with them at 1 year, yeah.
I was with there. Yeah, that 1 year I was there with Coach Oakley.
That's a crazy team, huh?
Man, that was and I looked because we played them that year, and they were in like that first year. Whenever I was there with them, and that year with Coach Oakley, we knew that team was going to be really good, and I remember those guys. They came to Shane's,
guys like Eric Ebron and Jeff Sims, Elijah Jordan. I hope better things for Elijah and Jeff down the road. But guys like Duke McCoy. I mean, the list goes on. That team was loaded.
Yes, they were, and a
lot of Abels on that team too.
Quentin Abel, I remember he was, and they were a really good team. And I always look back at that team, and even though I was at Andrews at the time, and after we played them, because whenever I saw those kids around Greensboro, they knew me as Coach M, and I was like, I told them every time I saw them, I was hoping they would win the championship, because they had a team that I believe could have beat anybody, because they had so much athleticism on the team that it was crazy.
Yeah, Sims to Ebron, all you had to do was tell Ebron to run fast that way and
throw the ball up.
Yeah, tell him go get it. Yeah, exactly. Now your team now though loaded with running backs. I mean, I looked at that offense. You got a great offensive line, playing for some very good running backs. Guys got like Mr. Steele, Mr. Cherry, Mr. Brown. I mean, the list goes on and on. You're loaded. You got about 5 or 6 backs in that backfield that can really run that football, and they run it well together.
They work really hard. Coach McCoy and Coach Clark, they work really hard with this offense, and the Pender brothers that are the offensive backs and wide receivers coaches, they work really hard with these guys, and they put a lot of effort into making them the best offensive backfield that we've had, because I don't like that. Like I said, I don't like to compare with that championship team. That team has some extraordinary talent, but overall, from top to bottom, the number of backs we have is probably as good as Marquell and Ronte and Daquan Wade were at the time, but like I said, that team is always going to be on my heart. But this team, they're really, really good.
But you guys are glad you played that game on a Friday night down in Chapel Hill, because you got it over Friday. You were done. Other guys had to wait to play Saturday.
Yeah.
You went down Friday night, got your job done, had it in your hand, taking that trophy home.
Yeah, that was an extraordinary night, and the guys. I mean, there was so much heart that they put into that game, and so much heart the coaches put into that game, and for me, that was the last year, because I took the year off last year due to some health issues, and I came back this year, and so that was fresh in my mind coming back, and I was like, man, my last game I won was the state championship game, and just like with their offensive line coach, Coach Rob, that was his last year, because he had to take last year off.
He took a year off too, didn't he? Yeah.
And we both kind of came back, and he said the thing about it. He was like, man, the last game I lost was back to Central. Now, I'm not used to losing, and we kind of laughed about it. But he's just to say about Coach Rob, he's done an excellent job with this offensive line.
He's a big kid who went to Davidson back in the day, right?
Yeah, he went to Davidson, and he's an Andrews alum, and he's done. And I told the guys in the car, I was like, man, when I got a chance to, I was going to talk up your offensive line coach, because he has done an excellent job with these guys. Since I've been at Andrews, he's made this line from the years that I've been there. He's made them into a great line. He's made them
what
into a unit.
What are those skirmishes like in practice? You get your defensive line going against his offense. What are those skirmishes like?
Like
that's
this
a lot
year,
of fun, huh?
this year it's been tooth and nail. But the thing about it, we share kids. We have some of our offensive linemen are defensive linemen, some of our defensive linemen are offensive linemen, and but it's been tooth and nail, because this is to me, this is one of the best defensive lines we've had at Andrews, with size and quickness, and just like with our offensive line, we're going to be really, really hard to beat.
It's wild with this offense. I was looking at the numbers on this. The fact that the running backs have rushed for I think it's 1,650 yards, about 25, 26 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. But your quarterback, Bailey Willis, I think he's carried the ball 7 times, maybe 12 yards. The quarterback's not a big part of the running, but you just got so many running backs back there. They're running by committee and taking care of business.
Well, with our offense, with the wing T and the way we run it, we don't really. Our quarterback doesn't have the responsibility of running unless there's a breakdown in the passing game. And however, for Bailey, he actually is quite athletic,
exactly.
But that's not what we're asking.
But you guys haven't
do.
been forced to throw the ball much this year. You've been running so well. You haven't been forced to throw it, have you?
And if we were forced to throw it, I mean, we have a great wide receiver core that hadn't had a chance to really shine, because we're not throwing the ball. We're not throwing the ball as much as we did the year we won it in 2013.
I'll tell you that Lamar Reynard loved to throw that ball. I used to watch some of those highlights on TV on the Friday night shows. He would just set that thing up and let it roll.
Yeah, he was like I said before, we had some uncommon talent on that team with him and Markwell on the offensive side of the ball, because Markwell could run it. I thought he was, at the time, was, to me, and it was personal because I coached him, he was the best running back in the state to me.
He was a character, because he come in here just a smooth, calm, collective young man. Then you see him on the field to be running like a madman out there.
And he was probably the most unselfish kid I've ever coached. And the same with Lamar. Lamar was, both he and Markwell were very unselfish players. Like, they never looked for any accolades. And Lamar was like, I mean, I still see his dad at school.
His dad's active. Eddie, right?
Yeah, Eddie Lamar. And Eddie Reynard, I always mess with the name, but it's Eddie Reynard. But I talked to him about Lamar at A&T. Now I'm like, I want the best for him at A&T, but I understand where the situation where he's behind another guy.
But it's always fun when you see his name out there doing well. You're always proud of that guy. Very proud of him.
And to see him throw the ball, I mean, I always love the way he throws the ball, because he's so tall and he has the arm and
spiral, isn't it? Hanging high spiral.
And he can sling it. That was one thing about him, is that he can sling the ball.
Route for him, man. He can throw that ball way up there and long.
And with the receivers to go get it, I mean, like at A&T, they have a great receiving core, and I can't wait to see him when the keys to the car is his there at A&T. So.
Well, you talk about the guys you brought tonight. Just talk a little bit about these young men that are with you here this evening.
They are like Mr. Hill. He is a he didn't start out at Andrews. He came to us as a sophomore, and whenever he first got there, we didn't really know if he was going to play defensive line or offensive line. But whenever he got a chance on offensive line, he's a road grader. He's one of those type of tackles that just that mauls you. And we always get on him because we kind of joke about him at times in practice because we have to get him mad to really play well. But to me, he's one of the offensive linemen that I like to watch because he's one of those guys. Whenever I was an offensive lineman, I love the run game, and he plays really well.
Yeah, I loved that run game when I was a kid too. I always like blocking those defensive backs. Used to drive those guys crazy. I still see it today. Some of these games. The Dudley game against Richmond County, I kind of called the downfield blocking was exceptional. You knock out one of those defensive backs, knock him toward the side, block him, just opens up a nice hole. You got those spaces out there. And as an offensive lineman, I think part of your duty, part of your goal, your task is let's see if we can drive these crazy little defensive backs. Just get on these guys. And I like to block them when the play's well on the other side of the field. You're driving this guy toward the parking lot because they're little anyway. You drive these. If you get them right, you can block those guys all day long anyway.
And the world, for our guys, because our run scheme is not really. It's complicated, but it's not complicated. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is it's complicated in that there's a lot of intricate things that we do, but it's not. But a lot of it is just either base blocking or down blocking, and they are. From everything that I see, and like I said, I'm a defensive coach now, and from everything I see on Friday nights, it's like I see them just like completely just mauling people. Our offensive line, because we have size, we have. I know it's funny to hear somebody when they talk about offensive line and say we have speed, but we have our guys, they fire off the ball. And that's one of the biggest things that our offensive line really fires off the ball, and they knock guys off the ball. Like Monday night, and I don't want to sound, I don't want to be like conceited or sound cocky, but our guys really just knocked them off the ball.
You dominated then. You were dominant.
And that's and that's how they play. And
if you can establish that early, it makes it better for the long game. Once you get those defensive guys heads early in that game, you got them in. Just got to keep it up, keep going.
Well, see, and that's for our guys like now. And I told them in the car, I was like, man, y'all really, even with our guys in practice, our defensive guys in practice, it's really, really hard whenever you have these kind of the size of our guys. When you'll see when they come up, there's some big guys, and when you have them leaning on people, it's really, really, really. Like whenever you get to that fourth quarter, you see this guy that's about 6'2", about 300 coming at you again, and he's not stopping. It's like,
it makes a
what
difference.
Do you do? It's
Otherwise, the big heavyset guy comes at you, just kind of push him aside or get around him quickly and move on. But if he hits you and keeps coming at you, and late in the game he's still coming after you, then you are in trouble.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that while our guys we have some big guys that lead up, but it's like whenever you have our backup guys, they come in and they're not small guys either, and they're still playing really hard every play, every minute of the game, and they're waiting to get in. They're waiting for their chance, and whenever they get their chance, they come after you too.
Now, how about we got Mr. Hill? Who else do we have here tonight?
We have Deontay Davis.
Mr. Davis, okay.
And I'm slipping on the name.
Well, I'll start with Mr. Hill, Mr. Davis. We'll get that third guy. We'll send him up in a couple minutes. But before we get you out here and bring the players in, now you were coaching at Smith back with Coach Brewington back that first year. One of our guys that helps us here with the Greensboro Sports, he helps us in the broadcast, Mr. Dennis White. You remember Dennis White?
I remember Dennis.
He's not here this evening, but I just want to make sure we got a shout out for Dennis, because if you're there at Smith at that time, you remember Dennis probably too.
I do remember Dennis. He was and he was one of our coaches. He was one of the guys that was
kind of motivational guy.
He was motivational and
spiritual.
Very spiritual. But he was one of the guys that, like, whenever the kids came to practice, he was the one that always kept them up. He was the one that always, whenever Coach Brewington, because Coach Brewington was a great guy, but like if he'd get on one of the kids, he was the one that Coach White would go over to and say, well, you know, it's not as bad as it seems, and you know he loves you. And I always liked Coach White. Coach White was always a great guy, and I hate that he's not here because I saw his name on because I do visit your website, and I saw Coach White's name on it, and I remember back in, I think it was back then. Did y'all start back then?
We were doing it back then, yeah.
Okay, and I remember that he actually talked about it.
We did a lot with Coach Brewington back in the day because we used to have those Smith. That was one thing we kind of set up a deal with Coach Brewington. The big deal was as soon as you guys win a game over at Smith, we're going to get a bunch of you guys in there. We brought a truckload in that night, but it was always fun because Coach Brewington did a pretty good job of motivating those guys and kind of got them, got their name out there more. Kind of got Smith back on the map back in that day, which was a good thing.
And whenever I was there, because I was there in the in-between, because I was with Coach Oakley, and Coach Oakley asked me, he said whenever we got the new guy in at Smith, to make sure that to help him along with the kids because they were all, because Smith at the time was very tough. It was tough to get those kids to kind of buy into what we were doing.
Exactly.
And whenever Coach Brewington came in, he just hit the ground running. And I remember some of the early conversations we had. Whenever I talked to Coach Brewington, I was just like, it's tough here. I said, but the thing about it, once the kids, once you get their respect and once you get in with the kids, I said they'll fight for you. And he got it to the point where they were knocking on the door, and I really thought that they could win the state title. They just happened to get High Point Central in the first round that year.
I remember one night you guys went out in Southeast Guilford. You may have been gone by then, but that was the year that Smith was on a roll. And that one night, Coach Brewington decided to bench, I think, Sims. So he put like Duke McCoy, I think, at quarterback. And that was a rugged quarterback that night. That guy was kind of a rugged man to have back there at quarterback.
Yeah, Duke was I loved Duke whenever I was there because he was one of the, one thing I always remember about whenever we played him that year, he came up to me like whenever we, right before the game, he came up and he hugged me and I said, man, go out there and play your game today. He said, oh, Coach, don't worry, I am. I said, I believe in it. And then he went out and he had one heck of a game. He had one, since I've been at Andrews, that's probably one of the best games I've had seen. Between him and Elijah, they had the best game I've seen anybody as a competitor. There are some Central guys that I can name, but I don't want to.
Yeah, okay.
But as competitors, whenever Smith came over,
we had a competitor here one night in that same chair you're in. I asked this guy one night. I was asking about the game he had coming. He played for Page. I said, "What about this Mallard Creek coming? Butler coming? These teams, we'll take care. We got these guys." I thought, boy, this guy's cocky. I knew who he was. And what is he thinking? This guy. He said that. Oh, he's going. But it was James Summers. And James, yeah, he got it done. I said, I believe that guy.
He's still getting it done.
When I saw Saturday, I said, man, I've not seen too many people do that kind of stuff lately. It was getting scary. I hope he didn't hurt himself. He runs so hard.
And James, and I didn't know, don't really know James that well. I saw him while he was at Page, but I could tell he was going to be really good because I went to the championship game. Because, like I said, I'm a Page pirate at heart, and I went to the championship game, and I was like, I've never seen a kid take over a game like he did.
And he was doing it on defense. He had an interception that game too.
I know. That's what I told people. I was like, man, I've never. Even whenever I was growing up, I saw Trip Welburn and guys like that. James had he had one of the highlight games I've ever seen of any high school player.
Yeah, I was watching that game in East Carolina Saturday playing Virginia Tech. I thought at the last part of the game they might put James in there on defense against Virginia Tech. I thought he might tell the coach, "Hey, put me in."
The thing about it, he probably could have went out there and played just as well as anybody else.
Yeah.
But he's one of the best athletes I've seen.
Crazy good.
Yeah.
Crazy good. Well, Coach Jamelle Miller, you've done a great job. Let's let some of those players step up and say a few things too. I guess we'll start with your choice into Mr. Hill, Mr. Davis, and we'll get that other guy's name out there. Get them all rolling in here.
Okay, I'll go get Deontay first because he's coming up now.
Okay, he's ready.